Welcome to the Salish Sea Fellowship Sunday afternoon service of March 15th. Our speaker today is Pastor Scott Rosekrans, the minister of the Community Methodist Church here where we meet. He will speak about how his congregation serves the local community. We hope you enjoy this recording of our service, and we hope to see you in person some Sunday afternoon. Thanks for listening.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. We have a little change in plan. Madeline McNeil, who was supposed to be our speaker today, couldn't make it from Spokane because of the nasty weather in the passes. It was really dicey. So she called yesterday and just thought it was better not to come. But fortunately for us, Pastor Scott Rosekrans, who leads this the Community United Methodist Church, agreed to step in at the last minute. Thank you very much. We've decided to put our fourth Sunday Game and Snacks event on hiatus as we haven't been having a very good turnout. The board's thinking about other ways to get people together on the fourth Sunday. If you have any thoughts about that, please let us know. We're open to new ideas. Our next gathering will be a fifth Sunday event on March 29th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the home of Joyce Francis. You're all cordially invited to gather for beverages and light hors d'oeuvres, to watch a Cantus concert of spiritual music. Cantus is an a cappella men's choir from Minneapolis. For more information, contact Joyce or sign up with a link on our community update. 4 to 6 on the fifth Sunday, which will be March 29th. Our next service will be on April 5th, featuring Joseph Bendarek, as well as the Quimper Recorder Quartet. Our breakfast club, which is hosted by Karen Wamstadt and Sarah Hull, continues every Wednesday at 9:30. Now they've moved to the Roadhouse, and everyone else welcome. Quimper UU is inviting members of the Salish Sea Fellowship to join at the men's retreat this spring, which is May 1st to May 3rd. If you're interested, please see our own Brian Rogers for more information. Lastly, don't forget we have our donation jar to help support the work of this church, the CUMCs, for their store and their community outreach. Thank you.
And before we jump into the prelude, thanks, Doug, I'd like to introduce Kit Malone, who's here from ECHO, who would like to talk to us. ECHO was who we contributed to in February. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Nils. I'm Kit Malone from ECHO, and I'm terrified of public speaking, so I'm going to do my best. First thing I want to say is thank you to you guys for being such an incredible agent of change and resilience in this community. Thank you for your donation to ECHO. It was incredibly moving to me that two of your congregation came to ECHO and said, hey, we would like to donate. We as a fellowship would like to donate to ECHO. And I was so... my equipment coordinator isn't that guy, that knows how to usher people into the other room, where I'm sitting. But I did hear about it, and I was able to email you guys and say, wow, thanks for reaching out. And I think I got a check from you guys just a few days later, it seemed like, and I was just blown away. And I want to say that the contribution, I always get really emotional talking about ECHO, which is weird. I don't know what hit me. Like I started working for ECHO and suddenly I got teary all the time. Not a teary person typically, but anyway, the contribution that you make to ECHO is exponentially increased. As you well know, I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit, but you know that every dollar that you give us or any nonprofit that's like us in this community just expands and expands and expands into the community. We have 46 volunteers that drive for us, and we're always kind of getting more because we have a pretty high attrition rate with driving. Most of our drivers are elderly, so we have to continually seek more. But we drove over 50,000 miles last year, about 54,000 miles last year for people for essential services that they needed to get to. Every year we put out about 2,400 pieces of equipment into the community, used durable medical equipment. And can I just ask for a show of hands, how many people here have used Echo? Oh my God, oh my God. I'm done, thank you.
Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Oh, don't you want to go to that gospel feast, that promised land, where all is peace? Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Salish Sea Fellowship. We're a religious community of open hearts and open minds, embracing the traditional principles of Unitarianism and Universalism. My name is Nils Peterson. I'm your pulpit assistant today. I want to make a special welcome to those of you joining us online through our Zoom account. We're glad you're here electronically, even if you can't be here in person. And at this point, if you haven't already done so, please silence your phones. And if you're on Zoom, please make sure you're muted so as not to disturb our time together. Well, beware the Ides of March indeed. As you heard, our intended speaker couldn't make it, so we are fortunate to have Pastor Scott with us today to deliver the sermon. Thank you. We'd been working on scheduling Scott to speak with us in any case, so it's great that he was able to join us today. At this time, I would like to ask if there's anyone here visiting us for the first time. If so, would you stand or raise your hand, and Dan will come to you with the microphone so you could briefly introduce yourself to us? Any visitors out there? Not a single hand? I know. Yeah. Okay. Well, now I invite you to settle in and quiet your mind, and we'll begin our time together by ringing our chime. We light our chalice with these words. The chalice lit among us is a beacon of hope in a world in crisis, a beacon of possibility made manifest in community, a beacon of warmth through our inner connections, a beacon of light illuminating our shared wisdom, and a beacon of connection by our being together. And now I ask you to stand as you are able for our opening hymn, A Prayer for This House. The words are in the back of your order of service. One of the meaningful things that we do each service is to make time to share our personal joys and sorrows and hold each other in our thoughts. Dan will come forward with the microphone for sharing.
Thank you, Nils. One thing that has puzzled me for some time is what to say when I have the microphone up here in front of all you folks. And I had an inspiration about that just recently. And that is, who are we? We are the Salish Sea Fellowship. What is a fellowship? Yesterday or today, actually, I consulted my good friends, Mr. Funk and Mr. Wagnalls, to see what they would have to say about it, and what they said was, a fellowship is a body of individuals joined together through similar interests, beliefs, etc. I guess that fits. And one of the ways that we can strengthen those bonds is through sharing. So we are here at this time to devote ourselves to sharing. So, please, share.
You may have heard on the news of companies being attacked, their computers taken down. Stryker is one of those companies. They make medical equipment. My grandson works for them, and he's busy trying to get all their computers reloaded and back up operating.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else? Saw Joyce first.
Hi, I'm Joyce Francis, and this is a joy that Nils and I share. This Tuesday, the 17th, is Adoption Day in our family. All three of our children were adopted on that day. Two of them in 1999, and Richard in 2011, I think. I've lost track. Anyway, we all get to celebrate Adoption Day together.
Thank you. I know this person well. Virginia?
I shared last time that my knee replacement is healing a little bit ahead of schedule, which I'm tickled about. But I did not say how incredibly important this group of people was during that month when I was isolated. I didn't need to hear from people to feel the support. And that felt so good to just know that the support was there and that I could have called on anybody. And my incredible husband, who waited on me for that whole month, deserves a lot of thanks. And we are very grateful to Echo. We used a lot of your equipment, and golly, I don't know what we would have done without it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I want to give a really big thank you to the people that have set up so that those of us with hearing impediments can hear. Today is excellent. So to Gary and all the rest, thank you.
Yes. There was someone, yes.
My name is Celeste, and the first time Donna and I went to QUUF, it was around Halloween, and the interim minister was giving a talk on cleaning out your closets and ghosts in your closet. And the choir was dressed in pajamas, rollers in their hair, they had bathrobes on and carrying stuffed animals, and they sang a song about ghosts in your closet, and they went, woo! And Marge was the director, and I'm sure most of you heard that Marge passed on, and I just wanted to have a little moment to Marge Euro.
Thank you for that reminder. Don?
Dybeck here. Some of you have suffered through my list of 54 thoughts, rules, and ideas. Never all at once, but occasionally one at a time. And the one that seems most relevant today is, quote, war is murder and the result of the failure of leadership.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else? Aha.
Hi, my name's Liz, and I'm remembering today all the times we used Echo. My daddy died a year ago, January, and for the last several years of his Alzheimer's, we would go to Echo and get walkers and wheelchairs and bathroom, shower chairs, and one of my customers has a disability. All of them do, actually, but one of them needed wheelchairs and walkers, and we have been there many times. It's really a kindness to have such a service. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Okay. Well, one thing I would like to share, I guess it goes into the category of a joy. Within this past week, I celebrated the sun having gone around its revolution one more time since I've been here. And it's not one of those decade significant birthdays like, 30 or 40. But it is kind of memorable in that it's a 2-digit number. The first digit is double the second one. 21 would be an example, 42 would be another, and so on. But I'm kind of at that stage now where it doesn't really matter what the number is. It's just the fact that it happened, and that alone is memorable and a joy. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, I admit I should have known this was going to happen, but it's a surprise. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dan. I guess I wasn't going to mention this, but now it's a good segue since Joyce brought up our adopted children. 2 of those were our girls we were foster parents for them for 3 years and dealt with the foster care system for those 3 years. So I do greatly appreciate the fact that we're taking a collection for Olympic Angels, which is our March collection. Their mission is to walk alongside the children, youth, and families in the foster care community by offering consistent support through intentional giving, relationship building, and mentorship. And so our ushers will now come among you to take the collection as we listen to Pat Killian play Look to This Day.
Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. Look to this day, for yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only an illusion. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities of your realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. Look to this day, for yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only an illusion. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
Thank you, Pat. That was great. The reading today is from theologian and ethicist James Donahue, and I quote, "Peaceful living in a time of turmoil must include hope. Any narrative that is to carry us into the future and give us the reason and inspiration to make the world or our own lives better must be generated by a sense of hope. Otherwise, why go on? Why invest the energy required to create change? Our task is to discover the sources of hope in our midst and to allow ourselves to be moved by the dynamics of transformation that hope allows." Where do we look for and find hope today? I suggest we look in everyday places and to everyday people. Stories of hope abound around us, and yet they are not the grandiose stories that are usually captured in the media or elsewhere in the public eye. Rather, they are stories of people who have been able to create good lives for themselves in spite of adversity and obstacles that have been placed in their way. They are the stories of the people we know who believe that life is a treasure and who aspire to make that treasure bring happiness and joy to others. They are the stories of our families and the stories of people and groups who are making a positive difference in their communities. Our choir will now perform "Count the Stars." Thank you, choir. So, as we said, Pastor Scott Rosekrans graciously jumped in today at the last minute. Thank you again. Being a pastor is, in fact, Scott's fourth career. Prior to becoming a certified lay minister with the United Methodist Church, Scott was a Houston police officer, a criminal defense attorney, a district attorney in Texas, and a prosecuting attorney here in Washington State. His life experiences have given him a special insight on the human condition, seeing people both at their best and at their worst. Scott has led the resurgence of the Community United Methodist Church that we are here in, and their wonderfully successful outreach program, which serves so many in this area. Also, he likes to tell people that, and I quote, "If they aren't into organized religion, I'm their guy, as I'm not very organized, and go where the Holy Spirit leads me." Scott, take it away.
Well, that's right. That is right. I'm not very organized. All right. So, put this out of the way. So I get this question asked a lot. In fact, it was asked here by somebody that just started coming to our church. Just exactly what is a Methodist? And it is a question that I am often asked, and I was born in the Methodist Church. My grandfather was a Methodist minister before they even united back in 1968, so I guess it's in my DNA. I started going to church when you had to go to church, and that's the problem. Now we don't have to go to church. We have to want to go to church, and I think that's what we're looking at today. So this person asked, and this one here, she's in my age demographic, our age demographic, and she gave me a laundry list of all the different churches that she had gone to growing up, including a time with the Mormons. And she left the Mormons, and now they don't talk to her either. So, and she asked me, she says, well, what do the Methodists stand for? What makes Methodists different than anybody else if you think Methodists are different? And I could have given her my Book of Discipline or one of my autobiographies on John Wesley or whatever. But I said, well, no. I said, let's keep it simple. And I mentioned John Wesley. John Wesley is the founder of the Methodist denomination. He was born in 1703 and died in 1791. He was almost 100 years old. And he grew up in the church. His father was an Anglican priest with the Church of England, so he was no stranger to growing up in a church family. But John Wesley was horrified by what he saw in 18th century England during the Industrial Revolution. He was appalled at what he saw outside of the church walls, the poverty, the starvation, the homelessness, and the apathy showed towards these people by the Church of England and the Crown. It resonated with him, and he expressed his concerns to the church, but they turned a blind eye towards these people because they weren't their people. They couldn't do anything for them. They were those other people, those people. So he began speaking out. He was ahead of his time. He began speaking out, and he started talking about, and he started preaching the love of neighbor, the love of the neighbors that nobody saw, that nobody wanted to look at, that nobody wanted to admit existed. So they took his church from him. They said, well, you just can't preach here anymore. They took his church from him. Not to be deterred, he took to the streets. He took his church to the streets. And he traveled around Great Britain. And if you think things were bad in Great Britain, if you think things were bad in England, when he got to Ireland, it was even worse, much, much worse. He preached in the streets. He drew huge, huge crowds, and he also drew agitators, many of them paid by the Church of England to disrupt his sermons, to throw rocks at him and clods of dirt and things like that. And there's a story in the Methodist Church, if you've been in a really old Methodist church, there's always a back door behind the pulpit. That's for the preacher to run out. Yeah, I got that little one over there, But Wesley, like I say, he was just appalled. And it's like, somebody's got to do something. So he created jobs for women. he would hire them to mend and to knit and to make fabric so that they could make some money because their husbands were dead or missing or gone or in prison, and they had children to feed. And he started what was called a class meeting. I think that's why many of us grew up going to church on Wednesday evenings. Wesley started that. He would hold these class meetings, and in order for you to go to the class meeting, it cost you 2 pennies, which now may not be much, but in 18th century England, 2 pennies went a long way. So you had to go to these class meetings, you had to go ahead and give two pennies, and then if you want to go to church on Sunday, you had to show proof that you went to the class meeting. But he was really good about being creative, about getting money to create jobs so that these people had something to wear and something to eat. So I often wondered, and I read, when I started here, I had somebody give me a autobiography or biography on Wesley, and it was fascinating, especially if you're a history nut. But I thought, well, what motivated Wesley to do what nobody else was willing to do and to fade the heat for it? And I think, in my own simple, and I didn't go to seminary, I went to law school, I went to the police academy, but I think 3 things really, from my reading, resonated with Wesley, and one of them had to do when Jesus was approached by the rich young man who said, I've followed all the commandments, I've done everything I'm supposed to do, what else do I need to do? And Jesus said, well, let me boil it down for you. Love God, love your neighbor. Everything else will take care of itself. That really resonated with Wesley. Love God, love your neighbor. And he was a big fan of the Apostle James, and James just wrote one book. A lot of theologians call it a letter. A lot of theologians blow it off because it was so short. But James wrote this one book in the Bible. And the one thing that resonated with Wesley and me was faith without deeds is just worthless. What good is it if you're not doing anything with it? And you will know us by our fruit. That resonated with Wesley. And also, I think the other thing that resonated with Wesley was it's in Matthew's gospel, and Jesus is talking about, when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you gave me clothes. When I was sick, you healed me. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. And when I was in prison, you came and visited me. And they asked, when did we do that? They said, whenever you did it for the least of one of my brothers and sisters, you have done it for me. I think those things really resonated with Wesley. And he made a lot of money. He sold a lot of, he was a prolific songwriter, just like his brother Charles, and he sold a lot of his sermons. He made a lot of money, but he gave it away as fast as he could. And he was quoted as saying, if I die with more than 20 pounds in my pocket, $20 give or take, consider me a robber and a thief. He gave away his money faster than he would make it. So that's kind of in our DNA. I think that's what, if we really do follow John Wesley, that's what makes us a little bit different. So now the big question that you're asking yourself is so how do we at Community United Methodist Church embody the teachings of John Wesley? Well, like I said, and like Neil said, I didn't go to seminary. I went to the police academy in 1977 with HPD for 12 years, dealing with what we called them winos at the time. A lot of them were World War II vets, Korean War vets, Vietnam vets, people who started doing drugs and couldn't stop for whatever reason. And I got to know a lot of them personally. Then went to law school, moved up to rural East Texas and started taking criminal appointments from the court, spending a lot of time in the county jail, talking to my clients, and then being a prosecutor. So my seminary was on the streets, in the jail, and in the courtrooms, and I saw a lot of what I think John Wesley saw, man's inhumanity to man. And then at the age 62, I embarked on a new career path. I started taking certified lay ministry classes through the United Methodist Church. And I figured, well, I was going to Trinity United Methodist Church in Port Townsend. I said, well, I'll just help out there. I was already singing and teaching Sunday school and working with the kids and everything. I said, I'll just help out there. And that's when the district superintendent said, I think you're ready. I said, ready for what? So I think you're ready for your own church. Really? Okay. And I said, where? He says, well, they need one at Community United Methodist Church in Port Hadlock. They've gotten so small now they can't afford a full-time ordained pastor. I said, oh, okay. And I really wanted the job. So I took it 25 hours a week at $20 an hour. I really wanted the job because it's not about the money, it's about the mission. Okay, I didn't need the money, I just wanted the job. So I got appointed here, and because they could not afford, an ordained pastor, and I always say God plays the long game. It's like they don't need an ordained pastor as much as they need somebody who's creative, that can maybe think outside the box and do a lot with nothing. With nothing. I said, well, okay. So I met with the staff parish relation committee almost 6 years ago, and they asked me, they said, well, we know you're not ordained, you've never had a church. And I told them, I said, everything I learned about church, I learned in the cheap seats. I know what I like, I know what I don't like. They said, well, what's your vision for our church? And I did not see that question coming. And I said, well, that's an interesting question. I said, but let me tell you this. I said, as your former drug court prosecutor here in Jefferson County, I can tell you that the tri-area is ground zero for drug addiction, alcoholism, homelessness, unemployment, domestic violence, petty crime, you name it. We got it. And like the Crown and like the Church of England, Jefferson County's not doing anything about it, and we will. They said, what do you have in mind? I said, I don't know, give me 6 months to get my feet on the ground. I was stalling for time. I said, let me think about it. Let me see what's going on. Well, in the meantime, I had gone to Goodwill and looking for a book to read, and I found this book. It was called The United Methodist Book of Discipline. I thought, wow, that's a weird title. I said, let me buy this thing. So I read it, and as a lawyer, I was just enthralled. Number one, as a history buff and a lawyer, it had a lot of history about John Wesley, a lot of history about the Methodist Church, but then it had this thing in it called like social principles and things that we should be doing. And I read this book, and I said, oh my God, does anybody else know about this book? Apparently not. Apparently not. It has a constitution in it, which really impressed me. And in the Constitution, just like our Constitution, just like our Bill of Rights, it had articles in there. And some of the articles in there that immediately struck me was, there was an article that dealt with inclusiveness, that we need to be inclusive. There was an article about racial justice, that we need to be involved in racial justice. And then there was an article that said we need to be involved in gender justice. I said, this is some revolutionary stuff. Does nobody know about this? And then it went on to say, our personal salvation always involves Christian mission and service to the world. Mission and service. I think, like, okay, I like that. I can do that. And it says we are called to inclusiveness, which is one of the reasons why the United Methodist Church split 2 years ago. We are called to inclusiveness. But we had people in our own church that didn't want to be inclusive. Bye. I said, rip the Band-Aid off, let them go. So they left. And we're struggling with that, but that's all right. Because the Book of Discipline calls us to have full involvement and participation, and for all who seek to follow Christ by serving God and neighbors. So we're inclusive. It's like, hey, you want to come to the Methodist Church? Come on. And if you do, you're going to have to do everything we do. Because, we want you to serve God, we want you to serve our neighbors. And our services are open to all persons. So that's the first part of the book. I mean, this is really some amazing stuff. And then I got to the section called the social principles. Now, as I tell you the social principles, think about your 7 principles. And whether or not we're on the same page. So the social principles, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. And in fact, I met, after I got appointed, I met with the District Committee on Ministry, the head Methodists here in the Puget Sound, and they wanted to know how things were going. I said, I found the Book of Discipline and I read it from cover to cover, and they were shocked and aghast. I said, you read the entire thing? It gets pretty boring towards the end. It was written by Methodist lawyers, and I said, yes. Why are we doing this? And they said, oh boy, okay, we've created a monster. But that was, I was inspired. I think because I was inspired because, like you, I'm a baby boomer. We've seen a lot. And it has not been pretty. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start incorporating this into my sermons. This is some great sermon material. So when I'm talking about whatever Jesus is doing or Paul's talking about or John's talking about, I can back it up with the Book of Discipline. And I have had some people get up and leave my church. One got up and walked out in the middle of the service. I thought she was sick. She just went back to Florida. I said, all right, bye. Didn't hurt my feelings, but it was just kind of like, I just can't believe that. And I had another one leave about a month ago. She said, my pastor's just too liberal. I said, well, all right. Thank you. Okay, bye. But I thought we need to. But I would tell these people. They would come to my office and say, I got all over Jeff Sessions during the president's first term. Jeff Sessions misinterpreted the book of Romans, that it's your duty as a Christian to obey the government. No, Jeff, no, that's not what it says. So I preached on that, and I said, here's what the book of discipline says. Well, it made a couple of my congregation members a little upset, and I said, no, I didn't say, I just mentioned Jeff's name. I didn't trash talk him. I'm just saying, you got to watch out for people that misinterpret the word. And I said, I'm going to send old Jeff a letter. So I did some research on Jeff, and much to my chagrin, I found out he was a Methodist. And he taught Sunday school. Man, it just gets worse. I said, oh, God, no, So I have lost a few people, but I'm sorry. This is what we're called to do. It's a call to faithfulness and social engagement. It's putting our faith into action, okay? And it even said the social principles is a living document. And where else have we heard that? We've heard people talk about the Constitution of the United States is a living, breathing document. And so is our social principles. And it talked about creation is in peril. Who ever thought about talking about that in Methodist doctrine? He said creation is in peril. And it talked about unsustainable human practices. We're against that kind of stuff. It said we need to do something with global warming and climate change. We need to do something about our dependence on fossil fuels. If you don't believe me, see Venezuela, see Iran. It runs the world. We're talking about we can't have that. If we're going to have a creation, if we're going to have a green earth around us, we've got to do something about it. And it expressed concerns about the destruction of ecosystems, which is the expanded extraction of our natural resources. Fracking, strip mining, over-harvesting timber in the Amazon and the rainforest, and this is the book of discipline talking about that. And then it talked about our stewardship, having a stewardship of creation, a stewardship of the earth that we live on, because there's no other place we can live. And it talked about environmental racism. Well, that's when a bigger country goes into a smaller country and takes it over and rapes their land and takes everything from them. Environmental racism. We should be supporting sustainable policies and practices. It talked about food justice for people to make sure that they have food. USAID, which is no more. And clean drinking water around the world for people to drink water. And caring for all creatures. And he's talking about the ones that went extinct and the ones that are going extinct. I'm thinking this is really some pretty interesting stuff. And then it talked about the economic community. It talked about globalization, the fact that we live in a world community now. Some people don't want us to live in a world community, but we live in a world community. And we need to be worried about poverty and income inequality around the world. And we need to be concerned about human trafficking and slavery. And we need to be concerned about governmental graft, bribery, and corruption. I'm thinking when do we get to the Bible in this thing here? It's just this is I was impressed. And then there was a chapter or a section on what was called the social community. And it talked about we need to support one another in human sexuality and gender equality, and we need to support diversity. We need to be concerned with substance abuse because of the impact that it's having on our society and on our families. And we need to be concerned about racism and ethnocentrism and tribalism, which I described in some of my sermons, which caused a few people to get mad and leave. It's talking about white Christian nationalism. People walking around with khaki shirts on and polo shirts and tiki torches chanting that Jews will not replace us. Well, if you're a Christian, apparently you don't understand our Jewish roots, okay? But that's all right, that's okay. And America First policies, that's just code, that's just a buzzword for we got ours, it's up to you to get yours. We need to be on guard for that kind of stuff. Those are the buzzwords. And then it talked about the political community, about church and government. And we've heard it on the news, the United States, America was created to be a Christian nation. No, it was not, okay? It was not. And we're okay. We want to be independent. We don't think that the church and the government should be one another, because that's the problem Wesley had with the Church of England and the Crown. They were too cozy with one another, and nothing was getting done to benefit the people that they were obligated to serve, but did not serve. We can be independent, but we need to speak out. And it said we support civil disobedience. We support it. But it has to be peaceful. And we go to protests. I couldn't believe I'm in my 70s and I finally went to my first protest. I've been to 3. Well, actually, I went to a protest when I was a policeman, but that was as a policeman, okay? Why are they throwing bottles at me? You know, but I'm in my 70s, much to my children's chagrin. Mom and Dad are going to a protest. Hippies. You know, and we support restorative justice. We support, and I was in the justice system. It is not restorative, it is retributive. It's horrible. You do not want to break the law in Texas. Trust me. So to give you an example, well, these are all really great words, but can you put something to it? So the Book of Discipline has a section on it on war and military service, and I see this stuff and something happens I love to write letters. So we have I guess it's not a war, it's an excursion. I don't know if Expedia is doing it or not, but we're in the middle of an excursion in Iran right now. And so I said, well, okay, I'm going to write a letter. Now, I've written letters to Patty Murray and Emily Randall and Maria Cantwell, but, we're on the same page. They don't need an attaboy letter from me. So I found out, guess what? We got some Republican congressmen in Washington State, and they're getting letters from Scott Rosekrans. They've gotten several. So I wrote one last week to Dan Newhouse, and he's in Yakima, and then I wrote one to the guy in Spokane. I think his name is Bumgardner. Same letter, just different names. I said, Dear Representative Newhouse, I appreciate you taking the time to read this letter, as I and my church believe the act of entering into a war of any kind is not to be taken lightly for a variety of reasons. As United Methodists, we do have strong convictions on war and military service, and our Book of Discipline reads as follows. This is some great stuff. The church deplores war and all other forms of violent conflict and urges the peaceful settlement of all disputes. We yearn for the day when there will be no more war and people will live together in peace and justice. We reject the use of war as an instrument of foreign policy and insist that every peaceful and diplomatic means of resolution be exhausted before the start of armed conflicts. Similarly, we oppose the increasing reliance on preemptive strikes unless they can be clearly demonstrated to be proportionate in response, eliminated in human casualties, and undertaken in response to clear and immediate threats to human lives. So I quoted the Book of Discipline. So it's not I can't say it's not some lunatic on the peninsula, but I am quoting the Book of Discipline just so he knows that other Methodists out there may feel the same way. So I continue. I said, I honestly do not think that the recent unilateral action taken by the current administration is one that we can support as United Methodists. Additionally, as citizens of the United States of America, these most recent actions fly in the face of the Constitution and the clear intent of the founders of our democracy that decisions of such magnitude be considered thoroughly by Congress, before employing the might and force of the United States upon any country perceived as an adversary. Such being the case, we implore you as a duly elected member of Congress to demand accountability from the administration and to bring a peaceful resolution of this conflict that now poses an imminent threat to world peace. Thank you for your time and attention in this matter, and we pray that in all of your decisions that you keep the interests of all your constituents, not only in your district, but the state of Washington and the United States first and foremost. Signed, Scott Rosekrans. So I didn't call them names or anything like that. I said, thank you for reading the letter twice. That I'm thinking like, well, they get a lot of letters, and maybe somebody over there in Yakima or Spokane say, oh, we got another letter from that guy over in Port Hadlock. But saying, no, these people we need to be writing letters to. So we are concerned about war and military service, and we also are concerned about basic rights and freedoms for all living human beings. In the form of healthcare, it mentioned migrants, immigrants, and refugees. When I worked the streets in Houston, I worked the Hispanic part of town. I was bored to tears. Nothing ever happened there. They went to work. They came home. They went to bed. They didn't break the law. We need to be concerned about sexual orientation and gender identity. And we need to be considerate of religious minorities, because again, this is not a Christian-only nation. We need to be concerned about other religious minorities so that they can worship the way they want to or not worship. It doesn't really matter. So now the next question you might be pondering is, again, nice words, but how are you, or how is Community United Methodist Church practicing what you've been preaching about? Well, after I've been here about 6 months, trying to figure out what I can do, I kind of looked around. I looked at the books, and I thought, golly, you people are sitting on some money. They had $100,000 in a checking account, not even making interest. Now, I can't balance a checkbook, but that doesn't make any sense to me. So after 6 months, I went to them. I said, okay, we need to start giving away some of this money. Well, really? How much? I said, not much. I said, let's start slow. And they said, well, what do you have in mind? I said, let's pick out 3 nonprofits and start giving money to them on a rotating basis. Every month, somebody's going to get a check. And we'll start out small. I think we started out as $100 or whatever. They said, well, who? I said, well, Hank Hazen is on the ECHO board. Let's go ahead and give ECHO some money. So, okay. And I said, Gladys, she's on the Tri-Area Food Bank board. Let's go ahead and give money to the Tri-Area Food Bank. So, oh, okay. I said, let's give money to OLECAP. Well, why OLECAP? I said, when I was the drug court prosecutor, OLECAP Kathy Morgan realized that we didn't have any clean and sober housing for our recovering drug addicts, so she converted the Haines Street cabins down there near the golf course into clean and sober housing for our recovering addicts, giving them a clean and sober place to live. So we started giving away money, and so we've been giving money away for, I guess, the last 10 years. And I guess the other side benefit giving money to ECHO is we used to share a piano player, if you remember, Sheila Hargroves. Yeah. Sheila had a stroke almost a year ago. Never recovered. She can't play the piano again, and now she's in Port Angeles. But we went to ECHO and we got her a bed. Okay, so we support entities like that help make the lives of our neighbors just a little bit more bearable and a little bit better. So we did. We started looking for those opportunities. And when I was at Trinity, I had created what was called the Jesus Cup. And if you've been paying attention and drinking coffee, you see the Jesus Cup back there. It's a red cup. It says Jesus Cup on it. And we started that to collect change after church. And from that, we used that to support the Tri-Area Community Center, or the Tri-Area Food Bank. They had a senior table. So that money supported the seniors, buying them things that Food Line or Lifeline or whatever it is didn't have. So we started buying things for seniors, whether it was Insure or Depends or anything else. So it was just being creative to find those little easy things that we could do. And I started meeting people here at the church. People would come by the church looking for help. Sometimes they think a church is like an ATM machine, that I'm just sitting on a bunch of money and I'm just going to give it out. No, we don't do that. We don't have that kind of money. But I would listen to people and listen to their stories, because that's what I did for a living, was listening to their stories and then saying, well, okay, how can we help? I might not have been able to help, but at least I asked, how can I help? Can I refer you to somebody else? I need to go to the doctor, but I don't have gas. Here's the number to ECHO. Call them, stuff like that. So I got to learn about those folks, and that was what I call the birth of SODS, S-O-D-S. And that's the acronym that we have for our mission effort here at Community United Methodist Church, SODS. Somebody ought to do something. Be that somebody. So we began collecting clothing. The one asset that I had when I got here was I had a whole bunch of vacant rooms, and there was nothing in these rooms except old Mr. Coffee makers and stuff that Methodists are hoarders. There was just stuff they just did not want to throw away. So we started cleaning those rooms out, and I began collecting clothing, and I would have somebody would come in and talk to me, and I'd say, oh man, is that the warmest jacket you got, or do you need a jacket? And we'd take them down to the end of the hall and find a jacket or a pair of jeans or some shoes, or we started keeping food and stuff like that in tents. And so it's just kind of like, okay, here's an opportunity to go ahead and do that. And then I got a phone call a little over 5 years ago from a guy who said, my name's Peter, and you don't know me, but I'm with this group, and we're building a bunch of tiny homes down here off San Juan Ave. And I said, well, okay. He said, well, we're building them, but we don't have any place to put them. And I thought, well, how Port Townsend of you. We heard your church has a lot of property. What do you think about putting a tiny home village on your church property? I didn't say, well, let me run that by the ad council. I don't know, homeless people, I don't know. I said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. That sounds like a great idea. They said, well, hey, that's wonderful. Well, can we move our operation out to your parking lot and just start building them there? I said, yes. So they brought them out, and my job was to make sure they had hot coffee in a bathroom, and they just started building tiny homes, and it really energized the church because now we were the somebodies that were doing something, at least helping out in what we could. And so we christened the tiny home village in January 5 years ago, and they called it Peter's Place. And we were really excited about it. We opened up our clothes closet in February, and the first month we had 16 visits to the clothes closet for the entire month of February. Now, in February of this year, we had 100 visits, and 107 the month before that. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. So we're thinking, man, we are off to the races here. Well, what happened in March? Got a phone call. We don't know what this disease is. They call it COVID-19. Y'all need to close your doors. From the bishop's office saying, close your doors, no more in-person worship. Go home. And I got a phone call one day here at the church, and it was the DS, district superintendent. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm working. He said, oh, you're supposed to go home. I said, look, I said, we got a homeless tiny home village in our backyard, and we got a clothes closet and a food pantry with food in it and clothing and everything. I said, now is not the time for the church to close. Now is the time for the church to open. And he said, oh my gosh. He said, I don't know what to tell you. I said, don't worry. I said, I'll put some protocols in place. And so every Saturday during COVID, we had people coming by to get food and clothing and stuff like that. And as far as I know, nobody in my congregation got COVID because of the clothes closet. They got it from their grandkids, but they didn't get it from the clothes closet, okay? The little Petri dishes. We just said yes. That's all we did. We just said yes. And I just kind of think, and then a couple of years later, we added the soup kitchen. And I thought we'd get a lot of people at the soup kitchen, and y'all work the soup kitchen, But what the soup kitchen, it's a safe place, is what it is. They love to come here and sit and drink coffee and maybe talk and maybe not talk, and just have a warm place, charge their phones, take a nap or whatever. This is their safe place. And now I know the first names of at least a dozen homeless people, if not more. It was a safe place for them, and it just keeps growing. Well, then I started getting phone calls from other churches. Well, what's it like having a bunch of homeless people living in your backyard? I said, well, no needles, no beer bottles, no wine bottles, no graffiti, no break-ins. I just hope we're as good a neighbors to them as they are to us. I don't even know they're back there, except on Sunday mornings when I look out the window and there they are. I said, I just hope that we're good neighbors to them. But really, more importantly, I think we got just, again, I don't want to overplay my hand. All I said was yes, and the church said, okay. I think that we're the catalyst for something bigger, because people say, well, the Methodists did it, and they survived. They survived COVID. They survived having a bunch of homeless people and everything. Maybe we might want to go ahead and do that too. So now we've got a tiny home village in Port Townsend. We've got Caswell Brown and Habitat's building a subdivision, and it's like catching on a little bit, and it just kind of keeps growing. But I tell people, they say, well, how big is your church and how much money do you have? I said, we're not very big, and we definitely don't have much money. I said, but it's not a Methodist thing. We couldn't do this without the support from other churches and other organizations. And the churches out here, they were a little suspicious. It's like, are you trying to steal some of my flock? No, but I got a few I can send your way. I said, trust me, okay? No, trust me. So once they realized I wasn't trying to go ahead and steal their flock or whatever, then they started having food drives and clothing drives and raising money. So it's like, well, we can't do this. I said, that's okay. I just had a big building with a lot of empty room in it, and I have a lot of property. So we're just the perfect place for this. You'll do what you're called to do. And what we've learned is people really are good. People really do want to help. People really want to see results. I mean, you can send a check to St. Jude's if you want to, but if you want to see results, you see them locally. And I tell people, if you give us $1, that buys $1 worth of food. There's no administrative cost, no heat, no lights, no electricity, because we're here to help. And those that we help, they respond back to our compassion, because we don't ask questions. And we don't attach any strings. We treat them with dignity. We treat them with respect. We try to be non-judgmental. And we try to see them as just people who just got something going on, and they just need a little bit. You put a roof over somebody's head and a lock on the door, and that's life-changing. That's life-changing, even if it is only 96 square feet. But again, we can't do it alone. And what we've realized is we're an outlet for the generosity and the trust of so many other people. They know that if they give us their money, that we're going to go ahead and spend it where it needs to be spent. Because in our budget, we do not have a line item for the clothes closet and food pantry. It's supported by the generous donations of people in this community, people from this organization here, from the Salish Sea. And just, we've had people who we've helped out before. They come back in and said, well, hey, I want to give you $20. We don't say, no, you need it more than I do. We say, thank you. Or they'll say, well, I don't need this warm coat now because it's springtime. Can I just give you the coat back? Sure, we'll take that coat back. That's not a big deal. So it's supported by donations. And we have people, we call it secret shoppers. They call us, or they just go shopping every Saturday, and they show up on Saturday morning with a low. I've got one lady, I think she and her two friends from Port Ludlow, they show up about once or twice a month with a little SUV just full of groceries. They just love to shop, and it's fine. We got shoppers. We've got volunteers. We've got volunteers from other churches, other organizations. We've got one young woman volunteers for us. She says, I don't believe in God. I said, well, that's okay. Can you be here on Saturday? Okay. I'm not asking to be here on Sunday. Okay. And she's been there at least 4 or 5 years, and she's wonderful. She's wonderful. So it's just, so we can't do it without the help of the community. We try to energize. And Nels is right. These are turbulent times. I mean, there is so much bad going on in the world. You hate to turn the TV on. You hate to look at your device or anything. It's overwhelming. And like I say, we're all boomers. We've seen it. I just never thought I'd see it this bad. It's overwhelming. You feel helpless. You feel hopeless. And you feel angry. You feel angry, and you got to redirect that anger, because you just end up, what's the use? Why should I just do anything? What's the use? I can't cure world hunger. We can't cure world hunger yet. We're getting close, but we can't yet. But I can cure the hunger in my backyard on Saturday morning. I can cure that hunger. I can give them hope for the future, whatever it is that they need. And it's kind of like, how do you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. One bite at a time. That's what we do. And it feels good to do good. It feels good to help others. And it's affirming. It gives your life purpose. Yeah, I was a policeman. I could arrest you and throw you in jail. Yeah, I was a prosecutor. I could prosecute you and get you a life sentence in prison. Not very affirming, okay? This has probably been the most affirming thing I've been able to do in my entire life, starting in my 60s, because it feels as though there's a purpose to it. But I had to learn those lessons. And I try to tell people that you can do more with an open hand than you can with a clenched fist. And that's where we are right now. Too many clenched fists. They want to fight. So when I started to do this, I thought, well, this is really what I'd like to talk about, but so I asked Ron, I said, well, okay, I told him, I got this book of discipline, it's really pretty cool, to a nerd. I said, and I kind of got an idea what, where y'all are in your beliefs and what drives you and gets you out of bed. He said, well, let me send you the 7 principles. So if you've listened to what I said, you're probably checking them off. Oh, there's another principle, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. Because we're all of your principles, they're in the book of discipline. If you have been listening, we believe as you believe. There are no strings attached. There are no questions asked. We believe in the worth and the dignity of people. We believe in justice, and we believe in compassion. We believe in acceptance, the acceptance of others. We believe in truth and having meaning in what we do. We have a conscience that drives us to do the right thing. We believe in world peace. And we also believe that we're in this all together as one, regardless, as humans that care about other humans. And that's, I think, what the world needs. It needs more people to respond when they hear somebody say, somebody ought to do something. I will be that person. That should be your answer. I will be the person that does something for somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and I want to say thank you for saying yes to us as well. Yeah. Please stand as you're able for our closing hymn, Spirit of Life. Let us be grateful for this time of fellowship, for work to do and service to render. And let us be especially grateful for the ties of love which bind us together, giving dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days. Let's say our closing words together. We extinguish this flame, but not the loving joy of being freely together. We carry that joy until we meet again. So Scott will be available about 15 minutes or so after the service back in the music room if you want to talk further with Scott a little bit. Otherwise, I want to thank Joni Murphy and Paul Hinton for preparing the coffee and the snacks back there. And Scotty, too, I think, brought some as well. Yeah. Anyway, thank you.